Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to the fourth in this series of 9 majalis on the topic of Karbala, the ultimate trial, being addressed by Hujjatul Islam, Moulana Syed Ali Aqib Jaffry. Thank you for participating in these majalis, and also to those who are joining us overseas through video, through the web. We start promptly or exactly at 5:30 p.m. and Maulana takes the mimbar at 5:50 p.m. sharp, and inshallah we will continue with these timings for the remaining 5 majalis after this one. So without further ado, let me request Brother Sayyid Muhammad Jaffari to recite from the Holy Quran. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن حيث خرجت فول وجهك شطر المسجد الحرام وحيث ما كنتم فولوا وجوهكم شطره لئلا يكون للناس عليكم حجة فولوا وجوهكم شطره لئلا يكون للناس عليكم حجة إلا الذين ظلموا منهم فلا تخشوهم واخشوني ولأتم نعمتي عليكم ولعلكم تهتدون. كما أرسلنا فيكم رسولا منكم يتلو عليكم آياتنا ويزكيكم ويعلمكم الكتاب ويزكيكم ويعلمكم الكتاب والحكمة ويعلمكم ما لم تكونوا تعلمون. فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين. ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون. ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وبشر الصابرين الذين قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على رسول الله وآله الأطهار على رسول الله وآله الأطهار صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, we will recite a salam in honor of Lady Fatima Zahra Salamullah alayha. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Louder salawat, please. Ya bint Rasulillah, Ya zawjat Aynillah, Ya umma wajihillah, Ya Fatima Zahra. You were mercy for rahmatan lil alameen, a shelter for Haydar, shelter for Allah's deen, a cradle for Hussain, Zainab Kulthum, the Jadda of Mahdi, Masoom ibn Masoom. You are the fountainhead of love and sacrifice. No wonder you were named Lady of Paradise. Ya bint Rasulillah, Ya zawjat Aynillah, Ya umma wajihillah, Ya Fatima Zahra. O daughter of Ahmad, Zawja of Murtada, O mother of Hassanan, Ya al-A'imma, the weight of every role you bore so perfectly that Allah spread the tahir from your identity. Look This is Fatima, and this is her father, and this is her husband, and this her progeny. Unzurhum Fatima, Abuha Ba'luha, Banuha Ahlul Bayt, Tahharahum Tathira. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Ya bint Rasulillah, Ya zawjata Aynillah, Ya umma wajihillah, Ya Fatima al-Zahra. In marriage loyalty, content in poverty, as parent keeping faith during adversity, when working with fidda, preaching equality, when feeding the needy, teaching humanity. Your virtues are unmatched, Ya Umme Abiha, your model worthy of Sayyidatun Nisa. Your virtues are unmatched, Ya Umme Abiha, your model worthy of Sayyidatun Nisa. Ya bint Rasulillah, everyone, Ya zawjata Aynillah, Ya umma wajihillah, Ya Fatima al-Zahra. Tending your father's wounds, sustaining risalat, protesting Saqifa, protecting imamat. Your challenge did not die until the day you died. Your khutbah will survive every era and tide. We shall never concede that might is always right. Your protest shall endure, O Our Lady of Light. We shall never concede that might is always right. Your protest shall endure, O Our Lady of Light. Ya bint Rasulillah, everyone, Ya zawjata Aynillah, Ya umma wajihillah, Ya Fatima al-Zahra. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, I will now request Hujjatul Islam, Moulana Syed Ali Aqib Jaffry, to come and address this fourth majlis in this series of 9 majalis on the topic of Karbala, the ultimate trial. A loud salawat for Maulana as he takes his position at the minbar. Just a couple of things by way of logistics. There will be a question-answer session after Matam, a 10-minute session, and if you do have questions as the speech goes along, you can input those questions on slido.com, and then the code is Karbala 2020, Muharram 2023 with no space in the middle, and your questions will be relayed to Maulana at the end of the Majlis. Also, please switch on your cell phones. If they are young children who are making noise, we request it kindly, maybe take them outside to pacify them so that this does not disturb the ambience of the Majlis. Loud salawat, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Participate in the good deeds, and a request for Surah Al-Fatiha for Sayyid Ashfaq Hussain and Sayyida Naseem Begum, and also remember all the ulama of Islam, the shuhada of Islam in your Surah Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين سيدنا ونبينا وشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب قلوبنا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الغر الميامين المعصومين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وخطابه المتين وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون. صلوات. There are certain fixed principles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that govern the functioning of this universe. Among those, one is that Allah will not change the state of a nation unless they themselves change their own states. Another is that Allah wishes that things follow their normal course of action, and He has appointed a cause for every action, every outcome. And it is through those special causes that He has appointed that He wants things to happen. Another important sunnah and way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that He has created us to test us. خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Nablukum bisharri wal khayri fitnatan. We will test you with shar and khair. Whatever state He puts you in is a test. Whether it is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you have been blessed with, or a hardship that befalls upon you. This is how we should treat that incident. It is a test, and I am being tested either for shukr or for sabr. It is your response to this musibah or to this ni'mah that will determine whether Allah is pleased with you or is displeased with you. It is not the falling of a hardship that will reveal that Allah is upset at you. Or it is not a blessing coming your way that will tell you that Allah is happy with you. This only discloses that you are being tested either for shukr or for sabr. And in sabr, what is expected is that you display the maximum and the beautiful sabr, which the Quran refers to fasabrun jameel. That is our duty when it comes to the trials of sabr. And you see examples of that in Karbala. It's full of such examples. Sabrun jameel. When Hazrat Yaqub's ﷺ son was taken away from him, from his physical presence, he said, "Fasabrun jameel." My duty is to exercise sabre jameel. And yet he cried for so many years that he lost his eyesight, according to the ayat of the Quran. So crying and weeping, that is a natural outcome of the feeling of your heart and your emotions. It's an expression of love and mercy. That does not conflict with sabre jameel. You can have sabre jameel and yet shed tears over the loss of your loved ones, over the loss of Karbala, over the tragedy of Karbala. Sabre jameel does not mean that stop the flowing of tears. That is in line with human emotion. And we see this in Karbala all over again and again. They cried. They expressed love. Tears, an expression that your heart is alive. And the way the Imam dealt with each companion of his when he left, it is said that if their warasa, if their inheritors were there and they had seen the Imam dealing with their loved ones, they would have said कि Imam ने अपना हक अदा कर दिया. Just as those companions, they sacrificed whatever they had, the Imam also took need of their emotional needs as well, took care of their emotional needs of his companions when they were leaving and on their death beds as well. So in sabr, it is sabre jameel that we are supposed to display. And when it comes to ni'mah, when it comes to blessings, it is shukr. Prophet Musa ﷺ was commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah said, "Ushkurli haqqa shukri." मेरा शुक्र अदा करो जैसा मेरा शुक्र अदा करने का हक है. Exercise, display shukr, do shukr the way I deserve to be thanked. And Hazrat Musa ﷺ responded, he said, I cannot do that. For every shukr that I say, every shukr that I do, this itself is another nemat from you on me. ये कहना कि परवरदिगारा तेरा शुक्र है, ये भी एक नेमत है जो तेरी तरफ से मुझे अता हुई है, जिसके ऊपर दोबारा शुक्र करना वाजिब बन हो जाता है. Saying shukr lillah is a nemat from you that deserves another shukr. And if I say shukr on that, that will deserve another shukr. I cannot do your shukr. Allah responded, the fact that you have realized that you cannot thank me enough is the haq of my shukr. That is, ये है शुक्र का हक कि ये इंसान जान ले कि वो खुदा का शुक्र अदा कर ही नहीं सकता. Another dialogue between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, Allah said to him, Habib li ila khalqi. Wahabibni, wahabib khalqi ilayya. Make my creation love me. ऐसा करें कि मेरी मखलूक मुझसे मोहब्बत करे. And we all want our children to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is commanding Hazrat Musa alayhi salam to do something that the creation would love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hazrat Musa alayhi salam responded, he said, how can I do that? Kaifa afalu zalik? I don't have control over their hearts. How can I make them love you? Allah responded, Zakkirhum alai wa ni'mai. Remind them of my blessings and my ni'mats. Liyuhibbuni, they will love me. The key to tarbiyat of our children is that if we want our children to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need to remind them of the blessings of Allah that Allah has bestowed on them. Whatever blessings Allah has given us, which you can be thankful to Allah for, is better than the wealth which you cannot be thankful to Allah for. जिसका हक, जिस दौलत का हक अदा ना कर सको, the rights that will come, the responsibility that will come with that additional wealth. In the time of the Holy Prophet, there was this person called Sa'ad who belonged to the Ashabus Sufa. There was this roundabout, or this chabutra, in Urdu they call it chabutra, platform where all the poor people who had converted to Islam, they would come and rest. They were so poor that they did not even have full clothes. So when the time for salat comes, they would take turns. One would pray and then he would give the dress to the other, and then they would cover themselves and then they would pray. That was their state that was their financial state. And one of the persons, his name was Sa'ad, and the Holy Prophet, whenever he looked at Sa'ad, his heart would feel sorrow for him, would feel sad for him. He wished that he would have more freedom in terms of wealth, and more wealth. One day the angel Jibreel comes to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says, Allah is looking at your heart and knows that your heart is in pain for this companion of yours. And you can ask him to do business and trade. And he brought 2 dirhams with him. And you can give him these 2 dirhams to start his trade. The Holy Prophet, this person, Saad, he was always seen in the mosque whenever the azan was said. The next day when the azan was said, the Holy Prophet saw him and he said, why don't you do business and you start your trade? And he said, I don't have any capital. The Holy Prophet said, well, take these 2 dirhams and start your business. He thanked the Holy Prophet, he started his business, and it is said that whatever trade that he did, whatever he bought and whatever he sold, he made twice as much. He would buy a thing for 1 dirham, and when he sold it for 2 dirhams. And gradually his wealth began to increase, and he became more and more busy. And then he eventually set up a shop outside the mosque, so that he could buy and sell there. And as his business grew, he was not found as often in the mosque as he used to come. One day the Holy Prophet saw him and he said, I don't see you in the mosque as often. He said, well, my business has grown and there are customers and I've invested and the people are buying my things. I need to recover my money and I need to reinvest my money. But I do join the salat. But I'm not there awwal waqt, but I do join and come and join the salat. And as time came, he began to skip the salatul jama'ah. When wealth comes, ghaflat also comes with it. And the Holy Prophet was again upset at the state of affairs, till a point came that Jibreel again descended on the Holy Prophet and said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is again looking at your heart and knows that your heart is in pain regarding this companion of yours. What do you wish? Do you wish that we turn him back, change his state back to the previous state? Or this state is better for him? The Prophet said, I wish him the previous state for him. The angel of Jibreel said, well, in that case, just ask him to return your 2 dirhams. The 2 dirhams that you lended him, just ask them back. The Holy Prophet, next time he saw him, asked him to return the 2 dirhams that the Holy Prophet had told him. He said, well, Holy Prophet, even if you want 20 dirhams, I'm ready to give it to you. The Holy Prophet said, no, I just need my 2 dirhams. That 2 dirhams, that was the result of all this barakah in his wealth. When those were removed, they said time did not pass until he began to see loss in his business. And after a few weeks or a few days, he lost everything. And then he started coming back to the mosque on time. So with asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a blessing, a wus'ah, with abundance of wealth that one cannot handle, might work against us. And when wealth comes, all of these things, takabbur comes with it. Another incident, I recited this story last year as well, and I'm going to repeat it because there is benefit in reminders. The Holy Prophet was once delivering a sermon, and in the audience there was a rich man who was sitting, and then a poor person walked in and he was dressed in rags. And according to the Islamic tradition, whenever you enter a gathering, wherever you find a spot, you just take that spot. You don't find a selected spot for yourself and jump over the shoulders of people in order to come to and sit at the front of the member. No. Wherever you find a spot, take a spot. So he found an empty spot next to this rich person. So he sat there. And as he sat on his cloak, the rich man's cloak. So it was spread. Uski abab Hali with his thighs happened to sit on his cloak. So this other person, he kind of pulled the cloak from under his thighs. And the Holy Prophet happened to notice this act of his. The Holy Prophets were delivering a sermon. The purpose of the Prophet is to do the tarbiyah of his audience. So immediately he stopped the sermon, turned to this person and said, what have you done? Did you fear that his poverty would come to you? He said, no, Ya Rasulullah. Were you afraid that your richness would seep and go towards him? He said, no, Ya Rasulullah. He said, why did you do that? He had no reply. He said, I'm sorry, Ya Rasulullah, for whatever I did. And in order to compensate that, I'm willing to give half of my wealth to this person. The Holy Prophet turned to him and said, what do you say? He said, but I don't need his wealth. I don't need his wealth. The Holy Prophet asked, and people asked him, why is it that you do not need his wealth? He is giving it out of his own free will. He said, wealth that brings a frown on the face of the Holy Prophet, I don't need that wealth. ऐसी दौलत जो रिसालत की पेशानी पर बल ले आए, नहीं चाहिए मुझे ऐसी दौलत. I fear that if I have the wealth, I would end up doing what he did. Takabbur. Takabbur is one of the attributes that is reserved only and only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to test his creation for this attribute over and over and over again. Because the topic is trial. One of the beautiful khutbahs in Nahjul Balagha that talks about trial and has the keys through which you can solve a lot of the questions that come to your mind regarding trial. I'd like to dedicate some time today towards this khutbah. It is easy for me to recite and pick some of the lines of this khutbah, but I feel that the effect of this khutbah is going to be much more profound if we go over this khutbah line by line and focus on the areas that are relevant to our discussion. The first exam, the first test that Allah took after the creation of Adam ﷺ was when He commanded the angels to prostrate before Adam ﷺ. That was the test that the angels had to go through, and that was also the test that Iblis had to go through. Muhammad. So the Imam in this khutbah, he starts with the hamd of Allah. He says, Alhamdulillahi allazi labis al-izza wal-kibriya. All praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who wore the cloak of izzah and kibriya. Kibriya or izzat ka libas jisne oda, waqtarahuma linafsihi, and he chose this cloak only and only for himself, duna khalqih, not for any of his creation. وَجَعَلَهُمَا حِمًا وَحَرَمًا عَلَى غَيْرِهِ, and he made it forbidden for anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the greatest of his prophets and the greatest of his awsiya do not have the right to be proud. To exercise takabbur. Izzat and kibriyai belongs to Allah alone. And he says, وَجَعَلَ اللَّعْنَ عَلَى مَنْ نَازَعَهُ فِيهِمَا, and he cursed the person who fights with Allah regarding kibr and izzah. ثُمَّ اِخْتَبَرَ بِذَلِكَ مَلَائِكَةُ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ, then he tested his close angels with this attribute. Why? Tested. Why? In the Holy Quran, we also have this verse on the Holy Quran, لِيَمِيزَ اللَّهُ الْخَبِيثَ مِنَ الطَّيِّبِ, so that Allah can filter the khabis from the pure. Khabis ko tayyib se, pak se juda karne ke liye. So one of the philosophies of testing is to filter people. There's so many, alhamdulillah, people sitting here, but based on your intentions, why you came here, what is the motivation behind it, based on what is the level of your ma'rifah, you all will leave with a different level of thawab. And Allah will test us. So he tested his close malaika with this. Why? لِيَمِيزَ الْمُتَوَاضِعِينَ مِنْهُمْ مِنَ الْمُسْتَكْبِرِينَ, so that he could separate those who are humble and those who are mutakabbir. فَقَالَ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى وَهُوَ الْعَالِمُ بِمُزْمَرَاتِ الْقُلُوبِ, and he said to the angels while he knew what is in their hearts, إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرًا مِّن طِينٍ فَإِذَا سَوَّيْتُهُ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِّن رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. You know the story, so I'm not going to translate this verse. When I inspire him with my ruh, prostrate before him. فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ كُلُّهُمْ إِلَّا أَجْمَعُونَ إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ. Iblis did not prostrate. Then he gives the reason behind it. أَعْتَرَزَتْهُ الْحَمِيَّةُ, prejudice stopped him from doing that. जिसको हम also it can be translated, जिसे कहते हैं ना गैरत, कबीले की गैरत, मैं इस कबीले से ताल्लुक रखता हूँ, I belong to this clan, I belong to this social status, why should I bow before him, why should I listen to him, I'm of this to that, I'm a grade 17 officer, I'm a grade 19 officer, or I belong to this power of authority. فافتخر على آدم بخلقه, so he exercised pride over Adam alayhi salam because of his khilqat. وَتَعَصَّبَ عَلَيْهِ لِأَصْلِهِ, और उसने ta'assub को exercise, ta'assub because of his asl, because he was created from clay. He was looking at clay. Amir al-Mu'mineen and other imams in the riwayat that pertain to this verse says that had Adam Iblis looked at the Nuraniyat of Adam alayhi salam instead of clay, had he looked at the Nuraniyat of Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, he would have realized that the Nuraniyat of Adam was higher than the Nuraniyat of Nar. But he looked at the Zahir, at the outcome, at dust and Nar. And another verse, and again it's continuing what the Imam has a very important statement here, and I'm skipping to that. He says, وَلَوْ أَرَادَ اللَّهُ أَن يَخْلُقَ آدَمْ مِن نُورٍ يَخْتَفُ الْأَبْصَارِ. If Allah had wanted, He could have created Adam alayhi salatu wasalam from a nur that would have dazzled their eyes, that would have blinded them and dazzled their intellects, and He would have a smell that they could not resist bowing down to. ऐसी खुशबू होती, ऐसा नूर होता जिनसे उनकी आंखें चुंधिया जाती, अक्लें मबहूत हो जाती. If Allah wanted, He would have done that. But had He done that, what would have happened? Imam says, had Allah wanted, He would have done that. وَلَوْ فَعَلَ, if He did that, what would have happened? لَزَلَّتْ لَهُ الْأَعْنَاقِ, सबकी गर्दनें झुक जाती. Everybody would have bowed to it, even shaitan. And as a result, وَلَخَفَّتِ الْبَلْوَى فِيهِ عَلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ, the exam would have been very easy. इम्तिहान आसान हो जाता. अगर नबियों को, if the prophets were sent with riches and gold and power of authority and they belonged to a high social status, whatever happened, everybody would have accepted their nabuwa. Then the test would have faded. The test would have become very easy. And that is not what Allah wants. Allah wants to separate people and place them in their ranks. That is why He kept the hidden realities of Hazrat Adam alayhi salatu wasalam hidden from everybody, so that He could see who follows my orders and who follows their own desires. That is why He has kept the realities and the wisdoms behind some of His rulings hidden, so that He could see who follows His command and those who follow knowledge and wisdom. I will follow this rule because I know the wisdom behind it. If I don't know the wisdom behind it, I'm not going to follow it. Then you're not following Allah's command, you're following what you think is right and what you think is wrong. Kyunki ilm ho gaya hai uski hikmat ka, that's why you are following that command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is going to hide the realities, the wisdom behind some of the rulings, so that He could test you. Why? To find out who is following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who is following their own selves. Then He says, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ سُبْحَانَهُ يَبْتَلِي خَلْقَهُ بِبَعْضِ مَا يَجْهَلُونَ أَصْلَهُ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests His khilqat with things that they do not know their hidden realities. They are unaware of their hidden realities. Why? تَمْيِيزًا بِالْإِخْتِبَارِ لَهُمْ وَنَفْيًا لِلْإِسْتِكْبَارِ عَنْهُمْ, so that He could remove pride from within themselves, to get them to get rid of pride from themselves. And then He said, and then He says, take ikhtibar fakhtabiru fa'atabiru bima kana min fi'lillahi bi Iblis. This is again important. He says, take lesson from what Allah did with Iblis. Is ahbata amalahu at-tawil wa jahdahu al-jahid, while he lost all of his actions that he had been performing for so long. وَكَانَ قَدْ أَبَدَ اللَّهِ سِتَّةَ آلَافِ سَنَةٍ. He had been worshipping Allah for 6,000 years, and this very khutbah says it is not known whether these 6,000 years belonged to the years of this dunya or to the years of that dunya. He lost everything for a moment of takabbur, for a moment of kibr, and he lost everything. Then he says, فَمَنْ ذَا بَعْدَ إِبْلِيسِ يَسْلَمُ عَلَى اللَّهِ بِمِثْلِ مَعْصِيَةٍ. Then whoever is safe
after Iblis, after committing a sin similar to Iblis. फिर कौन बचेगा? Iblis, who prayed, who exercised and who prayed to Allah for 6,000 years, he lost everything due to a moment of kibr. अब उसके बाद कौन सालिम बचेगा खुदा से? He says, कल्ला, no, मा कान अल्लाहु सुब्हानहु, खुदा ऐसा नहीं करेगा कि जिस गुनाह की वजह से उसने एक मलाइका को अपनी जन्नत से बाहर निकाल दिया, उसी गुनाह के साथ अपने बंदे को जन्नत में दाखिल कर दे. The sin that resulted in an angel being expelled from Jannah, Allah is not going to take one of His servants in Jannah while he is afflicted with the same disease. For the law of Allah in the heavens and the earth is the same. Imam says, this cannot happen. Why? Inna hukmahu fi ahli as-sama wa ahli al-ars lawahid. Because the rule of Allah in the skies and on earth is the same. Hukum ek hai. Takabbur. One of the first sins, first disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, takabbur. And generally comes with blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When wealth increases, our attachment with wealth grows. We can pray for wealth, but we need to be disconnected from wealth to the level. In one of the stories we find that an Arabi, a Bedouin, came to Amir al-Mu'mineen during the time of his governance, and he asked for help, and it was the Imam evaluated that he was needy, and he said to his treasurer, give him 1,000. Give him 1,000. And he did not said what. So the treasurer turned back to him and he said, well, 1,000 dirhams or dinars, gold coins or silver coins. The Imam responded, Kilahuma indi hajaran. Both of them for me are stones. Both of them for me are alike. Give him whatever benefits him. दोनों मेरे नजदीक पत्थर हैं, जिससे इसको ज्यादा फायदा होता है दे दीजिए. Detachment with, in other words, in today's terminology, a $100 bill and a $5 bill is, both of them are paper, is paper for me. Whatever benefits him, give him. $5 और $10, $100, दोनों कागज हैं उनके लिए. This is the level of detachment those they had, and they can do justice when they are blessed with blessings. Only a few selected people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be able to do justice with them. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So when we get to that level, or when we get closer to that level, then you can personify the values of zuhud. Then you can personify the values of ithar, sacrifice. Zuhud means, zuhud does not mean not having. Zuhud means not being attached to the blessings, to wealth. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salatu wassalam, when he was asked about zuhud, he said, I will summarize zuhud in these two phrases of the Holy Quran. لِكَيْ لَا تَعْصَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا بِمَا آتَاكُمْ. Do not be overjoyed with what comes to you, and do not be upset at what leaves you. Na daulat ke aane par, profit ke hone par, bonus ke milne par, do not be happy over it, and do not be upset at what leaves you. Can we get to that state? कि आपकी investment double triple हो जाए और आपको खुशी ना हो. It's very hard. But if we change the way we look at these blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is possible. And I think I mentioned this last year, and I will repeat it again. The way you engage with this world, for example, if you are working at the bank and the person walks in and he deposits 1,000,000 rupees with you, and you are the cashier and you count that and you deposit in the bank, would you be the happiest person on earth? No. The next day he comes back and withdraws all of it. Would you be the happiest person? No. Why? Because you do not consider that wealth to be yours. It is given to you, it is an amanat that you're taking care of, and then it is taken back. If this is the attitude we have towards wealth, towards what comes to us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala regarding our children, regarding the other blessings, then when we are blessed with those blessings, we will realize that there is a responsibility that is coming with it, and when it is taken away from us, you will easily give it in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you know it is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The trials will become easy on you. And that is what we see in Karbala. Karbala is the locus of grief and trial. All possible trials that you can imagine, you'll find them converging in Karbala. Yazid was not the enemy of Imam Hussain, alayhi salatu wassalam. He was the enemy of Islam. And look at what he did in the 3 years that he lived after Karbala. It's very clear he was not the enemy of Imam Hussain alone or Shias. Oh, he was the enemy of Shias, Sunni. He was the enemy of Islam. And Imam Hussain ﷺ had realized that if he is allowed to rule, then Islam will cease to exist. وَعَلَى الْإِسْلَامِ السَّلَامِ إِذْ قَدْ بُلِيَتِ الْأُمَّةُ بِرَاءٍ مِثْلِ يَزِيدٍ. And he realized that Islam has become so weak that it is in need of blood. It is only blood that is going to save Islam. And not any blood, the purest of the bloods. And he knew it was his blood that is going to save Islam. Yes, the companions' blood, they gave their blood, the Ahlul Bayt gave their blood, but it was the blood of Imam Hussain ﷺ that saved Islam. And the plains of Karbala, his blood did not spill on the plains of Karbala. Karbala ki sarzameen mein Imam ka khoon Karbala ke registan par nahi bha. Karbala ki sarzameen mein Imam Hussain ne apna khoon Islam ki ragon mein utar diya. He transfused his blood in the veins of Islam. और इसीलिए जब तक इस्लाम जिंदा है, इस्लाम से हुसैन की खुशबू आएगी. Because it is his blood in the veins of Islam. He realized that. That is why on the day of Ashur, on the night of Ashur, he would say to his companions, they are after my blood. If you leave me, they will not bother you. Take advantage of the darkness of the night and leave. But nobody left. They had found purpose in life. They knew what their duty was. They knew what to do in this trial of theirs. One after the other, the companions stood up, one after the other, and expressed their loyalty in words that you will not find their equals in any other tragedy. The first person to stand was Hazrat Abbas ﷺ. Then Habib ibn Muzahir and Muslim bin Awsad, the others stood up and they expressed their loyalty. This is only one life that I'm going to sacrifice for you. Even if I have 1,000 lives and every time I'm slaughtered and my body is burnt and turned into ashes and the ashes spread into thin air, I will again do the same thing. This is only one life that I'm sacrificing for you. And on the day of Ashur, their actions exceeded their words. One after the other, the companions, as long as the companions were alive, they did not let the Ahlul Bayt enter the battlefield. As long as the Ahlul Bayt were alive, they did not let Imam Hussain enter the battlefield. John, one of the black slaves that was in the caravan of Imam Hussain ﷺ, he was also looking at the companions coming to Imam Hussain, seeking permission to go to the battlefield and sacrificing their lives for the sake of Imam Hussain. This person has been with the Imam, with the Ahlul Bayt for a very long time. The time of Amirul Mu'mineen, then he served his brother Imam Hassan and now Imam Hussain. And he was saying that whenever a companion would come to seek permission to go to the battlefield, the Imam would resist. Until he would say something, after which the Imam would let them go. The Imam, being the Imam of the Ummah, is looking and catering to their spiritual needs, to their emotional needs. By resisting them and making them insist for Shahada over and over again, them expressing their desire for martyrdom elevated them spiritually until they had fully actualized their potential that Allah had given them, and then the Imam would let them go. If there was any speck that they could grow further, the Imam would make sure that when they embraced death, they had actualized all the potential that they have. वो अपने कमाल तक पहुंच चुके हों. A time came when the Imam saw John standing in front of him. A black slave comes to the Imam and asks for permission to go to the battlefield. The Imam looked at him. He said, "You have served us for so long. I'm not going to let you go to the battlefield." But he insisted, saying, "But do not deprive me of the honor of sacrificing my life for your sake." The Imam says, "I free you of all obligations. Go and live your life. You are your own master now." He said, "No, Imam, I am with you. Is it fair that I be with you in the good times, and when the times get tough, I leave you? This cannot happen." But the Imam kept on resisting, and he kept on insisting. And then at a time came that he realized that the Imam is not going to let him go to the battlefield. He had to come up with an excuse. And he came with an excuse after which the Imam could not stop him. He turned to the Imam and he said, "I know why you are not allowing me to go to the battlefield. I am black. And my body has an odor. It does not have a fragrance as yours. And I do not belong to a noble lineage. You do not want my black body lying next to your holy bodies. That is why you don't want me to go to the battlefield." When he said that, the Imam could not stop him any further. The Imam said, "Go, John, go and sacrifice your life in our defense." John goes to the battlefield. He shouts in the battlefield, "Look at the battle of the black slave. Look at how this black slave is defending his master with his sword and his tongue." And he fights in the battlefield until he falls down to the ground. Imam Hussain comes to the body of John, who is about to leave this world. John opens his eyes and he sees his Imam sitting in front of him. What a comfortable moment for John to see his Imam sitting in front of him, and the Imam is making this dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, "Allahumma bayyiz wajhahu," "O Allah, brighten his face, wa tayyib rihahu," and turn his odor into fragrance, "Wahshurhu ma'al abrar," and raise him on the day of judgment with the abrar, "Wa arif baynahu wa bayna Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad," and establish ties with him and between Muhammad wa ali Muhammad on the day of judgment. He prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that his face be turned into bright face, and that his odor turn into fragrance, and that his ties with Muhammad wa ali Muhammad be established. John looked at Imam, he smiled, and he left this world with these du'as of the Imam. And it is said that after he had left this dunya, whenever the ashkiya would walk past his body, they could smell a sweet fragrance coming from his body. The dua of Imam Hussain was accepted. I'd like to say, John, when you were leaving this दुनिया, जॉन जब आप इस दुनिया से जा रहे थे और आखिरी लम्हों पर आपने अपनी आंखों को खोला तो आपने इमाम के चेहरे को सामने पाया, ऐसा शफीक इमाम जो आपके लिए दुआ कर रहा था कि परवरदिगारा इसके चेहरे को नूरानी कर दे, इसके बदन को खुशबू अता कर दे और इसके और अहले बैत के दरमियान ताल्लुक कायम कर दे, राब्ता कायम कर दे। लेकिन जॉन अभी कुछ देर के बाद मेरे मौला आपकी जगह पर होंगे, मेरे मौला उस हालत में होंगे जिस हालत में जॉन है। जब वक्त वो था जब मेरे मौला मैदान करबला पे आ चुके थे, कुछ कदम पर खड़ी बीवी ज़ैनब सलामुल्लाह अलैहा देख रही थी। मेरे मौला ने अपने आखिरी वक्त एहसास किया कि उनके सीने पर कोई संगीनी है, कोई वजनी चीज रख दी गई है। एक मर्तबा उन्होंने आंखें खोली तो सामने शिमर का चेहरा नजर आया, शिमर का चेहरा नजर आया। इमाम को इमाम का चेहरा नजर नहीं है, शिमर का चेहरा नजर आया। और ये शिया जानते थे किसको कत्ल कर रहे हैं। कत्ल करने के बाद जब यजीद के दरबार में इनाम लेने के लिए दाखिल हुआ है अशकिया, यजीद के सामने आकर कहता है इमला रिकाबी फिज्जतन व ज़हबा, ऐ अमीर मेरी रिकाब को सोने और चांदी से भर दे। क्यों भर दे? अना कतल तो सैयदुल मुहज्जबा, मैंने कैसे सैयद को कत्ल किया है जो पर्दादार था। कतल तो खैरन नासे अबम व उम्मम व अबा, मैंने ऐसे शख्स को कत्ल किया है कि रुए कायनात में उसकी माँ सबसे बेहतर थी, उसका बाप सबसे बेहतर था। और जब नसब की बात होती तो हसब और नसब के सिलसिले में इसका हसब भी सबसे बेहतर था, इसका नसब भी सबसे बेहतर था। अज़ादारा ने हुसैन सानिए ज़हरा भी खड़ी थी उसी दरबार में, ये जुमले सुन रही थी कि इमला रकाबी फिज्जतन औ ज़हबा, मेरे रिकाब को सोने और चांदी से भर दे। अल्लाह लानतुल्लाहि अलल कौमिज़ ज़ालिमीन। मातम हुसैन।
Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain. Allahu Akbar, this is the call of Ali Akbar for us salah. Allahu Akbar, this is the call of Ali Akbar for us salah. Ali Akbar for us salah. You be the witness, he has the surah. You be the witness, he has the surah. He has the seerah of Mustafa. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina. Everyone. Hussain, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina. Ya Hussain. Forgive me, Mawla, I am the one who severed your access to Al-Qama. Forgive me, Mawla, I am the one who severed your access
access to Al-Qamar.
Sever your access to Al-Qamar. Hurre-re-ahi, you are the free one. Hurre-re-ahi, you are the free one. In both dunya and akhirah. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain,
Hussain,
everyone.
Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain.
Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina.
Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain.
Oh, Akka, let me go fetch some water for thirsty children from Al-Furat. Oh, Akka,
Let me go fetch some water for thirsty children from Al-Furat.
for thirsty children from Al-Furat. Oh, will you come back, Ya Qamar-e-Hashim? Oh, will you come back, Ya Qamar-e-Hashim? Or will this be to your al-wida? Hussain, Hussaina,
Hussain,
everyone.
Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain.
Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina.
Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain.
Ya Ammu, tell me, will I be counted among the martyrs of Karbala? Ya Ammu,
Tell me, will I be counted among the martyrs of Karbala?
among the martyrs of Karbala. Oh, nephew Qasim, you are a hero. Oh, nephew Qasim, you are a hero. You are the warith of Mujtaba. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain,
Hussaina,
Hussain, Hussaina.
Ya Hussain.
Everyone.
Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina,
Hussain, Hussaina.
Ya Hussain.
Ya Ummi, I hear my father calling. Hal min Nasir yansuruna. Ya Ummi,
I hear my father calling. Hal min Nasir yansuruna.
hal min Nasir yansuruna. I may be asghar, my heart is akbar. I may be asghar, my heart is akbar. I am the grandson of Murtada. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain,
Hussain,
Sab padhe.
Hussain, Hussaina,
Ya Hussain, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain.
Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain.
This is the manzil of Mutmainna. This is the moment of Inna Lillah.
This is the manzil of Mutmainna. This is the moment of Inna Lillah.
This is the manzil of Mutmainna. This is the moment of Inna Lillah.
This is the manzil of Mutmainna. This is the moment of Inna Lillah.
This is the moment of Inna Lillah. Lower me into Nashib Sahara. Lower me into Nashib Sahara. To Ummi Zahra, O Zuljina. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina.
Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain.
Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina.
Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain.
Oh, Father Aina, oh, Father Aina, this is your daughter, this is Sakina. Oh,
Father Aina, oh Father Aina, this is your daughter, this is Sakina.
This is your daughter, this is Sakina. My heart is broken, my wounds are open. My heart is broken, my wounds are open. Oh, Ammu Abba Siba Wafa. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina.
Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain.
Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina.
Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain.
You are the martyr we venerate. your tragedy we commemorate.
You are the martyr we venerate. Your tragedy we commemorate.
Your tragedy we commemorate. We are the Shia, we are your Ummah. We are the Shia, we are your Ummah. We are the students of Karbala. We are the Shia, we are your Ummah. We are the students of Karbala. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain. Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Hussain, Hussaina, Ya Hussain. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Women, please take a seat. We will have the question and answer session.
Questions? Okay. Yeah, I'll start with the question online. One of the questions is mourning for Imam Hussain alayhi salam the ultimate goal of Azadari, or is there some other big purpose that is not regularly being discussed? Ansu Bahana is not the main objective of Azadari. Yes, it is an important objective. It is a result of when the tragedy of Karbala is discussed. To put it beautifully, drawing inspiration from the writings of Allama Naqan, he says, I'm rephrasing it in my own words, the tragedy of Karbala is the vehicle, tears are the vehicle in which the message of Imam Hussain is going to propagate. Ansu, if you are walking and there is a commemoration going on and people are crying, you would stop and then ask what has happened. And it is through this that the message would disseminate. As opposed to people celebrating, you might not necessarily stop. It is in line with the human emotions to stop and ask what has happened and what tragedy people are commemorating. So mourning is a way in which the Imams have chosen to spread the message of Imam Hussain. The message of Imam Hussain, we had one over the last 2 years, we tried to talk about the motivation behind the movement and how to become part of the movement of Imam Hussain. Yes, so there is a bigger goal behind it that is kept coming closer to religion, knowing our duties towards the Imam of our time and getting ready. Lest we be like those Kufians who invited their Imam and were waiting for their Imam to come, and yet when the Imam came and they were tested with hardships, with loss of life, being sent to prison, their family members being killed and their property looted or burnt, they started to step back and their Imam was left alone. So one of the biggest messages when we discuss history is to see what they did wrong so that we should not repeat the same mistakes. If there are any questions from the audience, I'll...
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Wa alaikum assalam.
My question is about the verse in the Quran. It says, O people of the house, we purify you with a thorough purifying. Before that verse, the Quran is talking about the lives of Prophet. So if you're reading it as a common person without that much knowledge, it seems like, the Quran is talking about the life of the Prophet and it's the continuation of same verse. So how do we tell that this verse is actually about someone else and not the life of the Prophet?
I'll quickly answer that question because it is not in the scope of our current discussion. If you look at the pronouns that are used in the verses before that verse and the verses after that verse, right, you'll see that they are all feminine pronouns that are used in the previous verses and the verse after Ayat Athir. But the pronouns in this verse
are male pronouns. So there's a change in pronouns that takes place for this verse and previously, and after this verse, you have all feminine pronouns that are referring to the wives of the Holy Prophet. So for those who want to figure out what is going on, there is enough light for those who want to see. And those who don't want to see, it's just like when you hide your gold from the robbers, you put it at places where they are not expecting it. So this verse has been placed in a way that people would normally go over it and not realize what is happening, and those who, so that it stays there and it sends the message for those who want to take message and want to find haqq, they will get to it. Betty, please be seated. Please be seated, otherwise I will have to, Dr. Nusab is one of my teachers as well, so I will have to stand up in your respect. Please, if you be seated, and thank you. A lot of questions in these two questions, a lot of questions that are embedded in these two questions. तौबा का दरवाज़ा खुदा ने हम सब के लिए खुला रखा है और मरते दम तक खुला रखा है. In the story of Hazrat Adam and Hazrat Adam and Islam and Iblis आया है, जब इब्लीस ने अल्लाह ताला से मांगा कि मुझे ये ताकत अता कर, मुझे ये ताकत इंसान के ऊपर अता कर, मैं उनके खून में, उनकी रगों में चलूँ और उनके दिलों में घर बनाऊँ और वो मुझे देख ना सकें और मैं उनको देख सकूँ और उनका एक बेटा हो, मेरे दो बेटे हों. तो हज़रत आदम अलैहिस्सलाम ने भी खुदा से कहा कि उसको इतनी ताकत अता कर दी, इतना उसको इम्तियाज़ात दे दिए, तो मेरी ज़रूरत के लिए क्या है. तो खुदा आलम ने फिर वहाँ पर मेंशन करना शुरू किया गया आपकी ज़रूरत के लिए कि जब भी वो बुराई का इरादा करेंगे तो खुदा उनके लिए गुनाह नहीं लिखेगा जब तक कि वो उसको अमल ना करें. जब वो नेकी का इरादा करेगा तो खुदा आलम उनके लिए नेकी लिख देगा, हत्ता उन्होंने नेकी की नहीं, और अगर कर दें तो नेकी 10 बराबर हो जाएगी. फिर आदम साहब ने कहा ज़िद नहीं, और ज़्यादा करें. मैंने उनके लिए इस्तिग़फ़ार रखी, अगर उन्होंने गुनाह कर लिया और इस्तिग़फ़ार कर लें तो मैं उनके गुनाह को माफ़ कर दूंगा. फिर कहा मैंने उनके तौबा का दरवाज़ा रखा, उन्होंने कहा मुझे और दीजिए. कहा तौबा का दरवाज़ा रखा है और तौबा का दरवाज़ा ता दमे मर्ग उनके लिए खुला है. मरने से पहले कभी भी तौबा कर ले, उनकी तौबा कबूल हो जाएगी. यहाँ पर हज़रत आदम ने कहा हस्बी, काफ़ी है मेरे लिए. तो तौबा का दरवाज़ा हमारे लिए खुला है. तौबा का दरवाज़ा शैतान के लिए भी खुला है. एक मरतबा शैतान ने भी एक नबी को कहा कि क्या मेरी भी तौबा कबूल हो सकती है, और नबी ने खुदा से कहा कि शैतान तौबा का पूछ रहा है. तो खुदा ने पैगाम दिया कि उसको कह दो कि मेरा हुक्म आज भी मौजूद है और आदम की कब्र आज भी मौजूद है, कब्र आदम पर जाके सजदा कर दे तो उसको उसकी तौबा कबूल हो जाएगी. जब नबी ने पैगाम दिया तो शैतान ने कहा जब वो जिंदा था मैंने उस वक्त उसको सजदा नहीं किया, तो मरने के बाद कैसे करूं. तो वो उसकी अकड़ अभी भी बाकी है. तो तौबा का दरवाज़ा उसके लिए भी खुला है. और the other question that I remember among the many questions, जी प्राइड, देखिए एक होती है प्राइड कि आप एक अचीवमेंट होती है और आप एक फीलिंग होती है खुदा का शुक्र है कि उसने मुझे ये तौफीक दी कि मैं इस काम को अंजाम दे सका, ये शुक्र है। ये शुक्र है कि आपको एहसास है कि खुदा ने आपको इस मुकाम पर रखा और ऐसे वसाइल पैदा किए कि उनकी अलाइनमेंट के साथ यू आर एबल टू डू समथिंग गुड। तकब्बुर ये कि व्हेन यू फील दैट यू हैव डन समथिंग ऑन योर ओन, आप अपने आप को खुदा से डिस्कनेक्ट कर दें और कहा हाँ मैंने, जिस तरह कारून कहते थे ये दौलत मेरी है जो मैंने खुद कमाई है या अपने इल्म से ली है, खुद कमाई है, आई एम द वन रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दिस। यहाँ पर आप तकब्बुर करेंगे, आपका अपना कुछ नहीं, आपकी हकीकत ज़ीरो है, आपकी हकीकत फ़क्र है। दिस वी आर इन एब्सोल्यूट नीड। तो एब्सोल्यूट नीड अपने लिए आप किसी चीज़ को भी अपनी समझें, ये हक नहीं है आपको, तो वो ना समझे, वैसे आपको शुक्र करें कि हाँ खुदा ने मुझे तौफीक दी, खुदा का शुक्र है, दैट इज़ शुक्र, दैट इज़ नॉट तकब्बुर। वालेकुम अस्सलाम।
My question is regarding an issue that is very important, but it's very commonly overlooked.
I'm sorry, please can you repeat that again?
My question is about an issue that is of great importance, but it is very much ignored in our community. But since it is the Majlis-e-Aza, we must bring it up, and that is that these majalis, this is a khana that we set up, more than the adults, it is for the tarbiyat of our children, right? Because our time is basically up, and it is our children who are the future of Hussain in this world, right? So, elaborate on how much of oppression it is on the Azakhana from Hussain and on Hussain in general. If our ikhlaq, us in the audience, if our ikhlaq towards the children is so harsh that it deters them from ever wanting to come here again, and because if we send our children away from Imam Hussain, what is even the point of spending lifetimes crying on Imam Hussain? So if you could please address this in terms of the akhlaq of the Aima towards our children, that would be much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Okay. Again, this is a detailed discussion, and maybe you can have a seminar, a separate seminar or workshop to discuss the reasons behind why certain things happen. But to summarize and the answer to your question, it is our duty to treat especially the youth and the little ones who are here, and not only here in the mosques as well, that they are not they don't feel unwelcomed here. If they feel unwelcome in Imam Hussain, then they're going to go somewhere else where they feel welcomed. So it is an important duty of everybody of the Banyan-e-Majlis that the youth and the young children, they feel welcomed. Even when it comes to giving tabarruk and things, they should not feel that they have been left out or they have been discriminated. Right? Even if you have separate boxes for them, it is okay as long as they don't feel that they're being discriminated and they're not being treated as they're welcome to this center. So this, yes, that is true. We all have a responsibility there. And it is also a responsibility that we keep the adab and the etiquettes of the majlis alive as well. We are not supposed to let our children do whatever, run around here and there and disturb the general atmosphere and ambience of the majlis. There is a responsibility there as well. Even if you take your children to mosque and they take the sajda of somebody and run around and disturb the general atmosphere of the worship of the mosque, that is again something that you need to take care. There's some children who cannot sit for longer, and if the majlis is there for 4 hours, don't bring your children for the entire 4 hours, because it is naturally hard to control them for 4 hours, right? So bring them for half an hour, 45 minutes, 50 minutes when the majlis starts, and then leave early when the majlis ends, so that they have a sweet experience, and the audience as well, they also have a sweet experience. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
سيد الوسيين السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين السلام عليك وعلى جدك وأبيك السلام عليك وعلى أمك وأخيك السلام عليك وعلى التسعة المعصومين من ذريتك السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس يا أنيس النفوس، أيها المدفون بأرض توس، يا سلطان العرب والعجم، يا علي بن موسى الرضا الراضي بالقدر والقضاء ورحمة الله.